Snow fell quietly over the frozen forest. The trees stood tall and silent, their branches heavy with white. Far from any town or road, a small wooden cabin sat near a river that had long turned to ice. Inside that cabin lived Jack, a strong man with a rough beard, old boots, and lonely eyes. He was a lumberjack, and for 3 long years he had worked alone in these cold woods. Every month Jack traveled to the small trade post at the edge of the forest to sell wood and buy supplies, salt, flour, oil, and sometimes a drink to forget his silence. He didn't talk much and people didn't ask him questions, but this time something different caught his eye. Near the market's back corner, a trader he'd never seen before called out, "Hey, woodsman, looking for help?" Jack frowned. "Help?" The trader grinned, showing yellow teeth. "Strong hands for cheap. I got a creature here, a goblin slave from the old mines. Works hard, eats little. You'll get your money's worth." Jack almost walked away. Slavery wasn't something he liked to hear about, even out here where laws were weak. But his back still ached from cutting and hauling logs alone. Winter made everything harder. The trader saw his hesitation. "Half price," the man said quickly. "Won't live long anyway. Might as well use her while she lasts." Jack sighed. "Let me see her." The trader kicked a dirty sack lying by his cart. The shape inside flinched but made no sound. "See? Quiet, too." Jack looked closer. The sack moved slightly, as if something inside was breathing slowly. "How do I know it's safe?" The trader shrugged. "It's bound tight, I'll even throw in the rope." Jack should have turned around, but the thought of another winter alone, dragging logs through the snow, made him nod. "Fine. I'll take her." He paid with a few silver coins. The trader grinned, tied the sack's rope tighter, and helped Jack load it into his sled. "Don't untie it till you're home," the man warned. "These things bite." Jack said nothing. He started his journey back through the white forest, the sled creaking behind him. The wind howled through the trees, whispering secrets. The sack behind him moved once or twice, but not much. He told himself it was just fear or maybe weakness. By the time he reached his cabin, night had fallen. The moonlight painted the snow silver. Jack pulled the sack inside and dropped it by the fireplace. His cabin was small but warm. He hung his coat, rubbed his frozen hands, and stared at the sack. It was shaking now, slowly, like something breathing harder. Jack sighed. "All right, let's see what kind of trouble I bought." He took his knife and cut the rope. The sack loosened, then fell open. What came out was not a goblin. A small figure rolled out onto the floor covered in rags. She had thin arms, pale skin that almost glowed under the firelight, and hair so white it looked like snow. Her ears were pointed, yes, but too delicate for any goblin. She opened her eyes slowly. They were bright silver, shining softly like stars through mist. Jack froze. For a long moment, the only sound was the crackle of the fire. Then the girl whispered something, soft, broken words in a strange language he didn't know. Her voice trembled. She looked around the cabin, confused and afraid. Jack crouched beside her. "Easy," he said quietly. "You're safe now." She didn't understand. She tried to crawl away but fell weakly to the floor. Her skin shimmered faintly as if light lived under it. Jack frowned. "What are you?" The girl blinked, struggling to speak. Finally, she whispered in broken English, "Stars. Home. Gone." Jack's stomach tightened. "Stars?" he repeated. She nodded slowly and pointed upward, toward the ceiling, toward the sky. Then her hand dropped and she collapsed again. Jack caught her before she hit the ground. Her skin was cold but soft, and when he touched her wrist, he felt a faint pulse, weak but steady. He laid her on his bed and covered her with a blanket. The strange glow beneath her skin flickered like candlelight and then faded. Outside, the wind rose again, carrying the sound of distant engines, low, humming, metallic. Jack stepped to the window and saw a faint red light moving far above the trees. It wasn't a star. He turned back to the girl. She slept deeply. her face peaceful but pale. Jack whispered to himself, "That traitor lied. You're no goblin." He stared at her for a long time, feeling something he hadn't felt in years. Curiosity. Maybe even fear. And outside, the red light in the sky slowed, as if watching his cabin. Jack didn't know it yet, but buying that sack had changed everything. Tomorrow he would learn that the thing sleeping in his bed wasn't from this world at all, and that someone was already looking for her. Morning came slowly through the frost-covered window. Pale sunlight touched the wooden floor of Jack's cabin. The fire had burned down to glowing embers, and the air smelled of smoke and pine. Jack sat in his chair staring at the strange girl sleeping on his bed. She hadn't moved all night. Her white hair shimmered faintly, and her skin still held that soft glow beneath the surface, like moonlight trapped under flesh. When she finally stirred, Jack leaned forward. Her eyes opened again, silver, bright, and filled with confusion. She looked around as if she'd never seen walls before. Jack spoke gently. "You're awake." She blinked, watching his lips move but not understanding. When he offered her a cup of warm water, she hesitated, sniffed it, then drank carefully. Her hands were trembling. "Name?" Jack asked, pointing to himself. "Jack." He then pointed to her. "You?" She frowned, thinking hard. Then in broken English, she whispered, "Ina." Jack repeated it slowly. "Ina." She nodded once, weak but sure. Ina stood shakily and looked around the cabin, touching the walls, the wooden table, the axe by the door. Everything seemed new to her. When she pressed her hand against the wood, her glow grew brighter, like she was feeling the life inside it. "You're not from around here, are you?" Jack muttered. Ina looked at him with those bright eyes and said softly, "Stars, home, gone." Jack didn't understand, but her voice broke on the last word, gone, and that single word carried more sadness than any language could. He sighed, rubbing his beard. "All right, Ina, you stay here safe." He opened the cabin door and stepped out to check his traps and firewood, leaving her by the fire. But something strange caught his eye in the snow. Tracks, too heavy to be animals. Machines. They led toward the river where a small drone hovered low, its red eye blinking. It scanned the snow like it was hunting. Jack ducked behind a tree. The drone hummed, then turned toward his cabin. "Damn," he whispered. He ran back inside. Ina was staring at the window, frightened, her glowing hand raised as if she could feel the machine outside. Jack shut the door quickly. "You hiding from them?" She nodded fast, her breath shaking. She touched her chest and said, "They find me. Take me." "Who are they?" Jack asked. She shook her head and whispered, "Hunters." Her glow dimmed, and she crouched near the fire, hugging her knees like a terrified child. Jack felt something twist inside his chest. He wasn't a kind man by nature, but something about her fear, pure and quiet, hit him deep. He walked to the window and watched the drone drift away toward the ridge. "They won't find you here," he said firmly, though part of him wasn't sure. Ina looked at him, studying his face. Then, slowly, she reached out and touched his rough hand. Her skin was cold, but her glow spread faintly over his fingers. For a moment, Jack felt warmth, not from the fire, but from her touch. It was like she shared her life with him, even for a second. Then, just as suddenly, she pulled her hand away, shaking her head. "No. You. Danger." Jack frowned. "What do you mean?" She looked down. "They. Come. You help. You die." He gave a small laugh, rough and tired. "I've been dying slowly in this forest for years, girl. Might as well make it mean something." She stared at him, unsure of his words but sensing his tone. Something changed in her expression. Something soft. That night, as darkness fell again, Jack built a stronger fire. Ina sat close, staring into the flames. She tried to speak more, her English broken but brave. "I worker," she said slowly. "Made by humans. In lab." Jack's eyes narrowed. "Humans made you?" She nodded sadly. "For stars. For building. Worlds." He didn't know what to say. The idea of humans creating glowing beings to shape other planets sounded like something from the old war stories. Ina continued, her voice trembling. "But I escape. I not want hurt. I want live." Jack stared into the fire. He realized now what the traitor had sold him wasn't a goblin. It was something precious, something alive that people wanted to own. Outside, the wind picked up again. He stepped to the window and froze. Far beyond the trees, lights were moving, white, blue, and red, hovering low above the forest. Ina stood behind him, whispering, "Hunters." Jack's jaw tightened. He turned to her. "Then we better be ready." The lights came closer, scanning the treetops, their beams cutting through the snow like knives. Jack grabbed his rifle and checked the door's lock. Ina's glow grew brighter as fear filled her. And somewhere in the night, a deep mechanical voice called through the trees, echoing, "Subject E7 detected. Prepare for retrieval." Ina's silver eyes widened with terror. Jack looked at her and said, "Not tonight. Not while I'm still breathing." He loaded his rifle and blew out the firelight. The cabin went dark. Outside, the red lights moved closer. Inside, the girl who remembered the stars hid behind the man who'd found her, and the long, silent forest was about to wake. Snow fell again that night, but the peace was gone. The forest that once whispered quietly now hummed with danger. Between the trees, red lights blinked and faded like eyes watching from the dark. Jack stood by the window, his old rifle in hand. The fire was out and only the moonlight touched his face. His breath fogged in the cold air as he waited, listening. Somewhere far off, engines hummed, steady, slow, getting closer. Behind him, Ina crouched near the wall, hugging her knees. Her silver eyes glowed softly, watching Jack with fear and trust mixed together. "They're here," Jack said quietly. Ina nodded. "Hunters. Always come." Jack looked at her, trying to think. "How do they find you?" "You glow like a lantern. Can you stop it?" She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. The light beneath her skin dimmed, fading until she looked almost human. "Only short time," she whispered. Jack nodded. "Good. That might be enough." He moved quickly around the cabin, blocking windows with blankets, placing traps near the door. Old habits came back to him. Years ago, before the logging jobs, before he escaped his past, Jack had fought in the border wars. He knew how to hide. He knew how to survive, but these hunters weren't like men. Their voices were cold, their machines sharper, faster. A deep hum rolled through the woods. Snow drifted from the trees as something heavy landed nearby. Jack peered through a crack in the wall. 3 armored figures stepped through the snow. Their suits shone black and silver under the moon, and red lights pulsed from their helmets. They moved like ghosts, silent, careful. One of them raised a scanner, its beam cutting across the ground. "Thermal reading, 50 meters. Cabin ahead," a voice said through a metallic speaker. Jack whispered to Ina, "They'll be here in minutes. If they take you, what will they do?" She looked up at him, voice trembling. "Erase me. Use me again." That word, erase, hit him harder than he expected. He loaded his rifle slowly. "Not happening." Ina crawled closer to him, eyes wide. "You fight, you die." Jack gave a small smile. "Maybe, but I don't leave people behind. Not anymore." He checked the last trap, a wire line across the doorway attached to a shotgun shell, crude but loud. Then he motioned her toward the back wall. "There's a cellar under the floor. Go, stay quiet." Ina hesitated. "You? I'll hold them off," he said. "Now go." Reluctantly, she lifted a loose board and slipped down into the dark, vanishing beneath the floorboards. Jack replaced the board and stepped back, just as the first hunter reached the door. A fist banged against the wood. "Open up. Human occupant identified. This area is under recovery order." Jack stayed silent. Another voice came colder. "Refusal will be treated as resistance." Jack aimed at the door. "You don't look like lawmen to me." The door burst inward with a flash of light. The trap fired, a loud blast that filled the cabin with smoke. One hunter fell backward, armor cracked. The others rushed in, their red visors glowing. Jack dove behind the table and fired his rifle. Bullets hit armor, sparks flying. The sound echoed through the forest. "Contain the human," one shouted. Jack reloaded fast, heart pounding. One of them leapt across the room, grabbing his arm. The metal grip was like iron. Jack swung the rifle butt into the helmet, shattering the visor. The man fell, gasping. Before Jack could breathe, another voice called from outside, deeper, harsher. "E7 signal is below ground. Access the basement." Jack's blood went cold. They knew. He ran for the trapdoor, kicking over a chair to block the path. But the third hunter was faster. The man reached for the floor, scanning. The wood glowed red under his scanner. Target found. Then the boards burst open. Ina rose from below, glowing bright again, her silver light flooding the room. Her eyes were no longer fearful. They burned like stars. "Stop," she shouted. Her voice shook the air. The hunters froze, blinded by her light. The snow outside turned gold for an instant. Jack covered his face as the light grew stronger, spreading through the cabin walls, through the air, into the forest beyond. The machines outside screamed with static, then silence. When Jack opened his eyes, the hunters were on the ground, armor smoking. The machines in the trees had gone dark. Ina stood in the middle of the room, weak but still glowing faintly. "They find us again," she said softly. "We must go." Jack looked around at the wrecked cabin, then at her. He nodded once. "Then we run, but not like prey. We'll choose where to go next." He packed what little he had, his axe, his rifle, a lantern. Ina touched the wall once more, as if saying goodbye to the small place that had been their shelter. Outside, the forest was quiet again, but Jack knew that silence wouldn't last. The hunters were only the beginning. And somewhere above the clouds, more machines were already on their way. The night swallowed everything. Snow fell in heavy sheets, hiding tracks, muting sound, and turning the world into a cold white blur. Jack and Ina moved quickly through the forest, breath misting in the freezing air. Behind them, faint red glows flickered like dying stars, the wreckage of the hunters' machines. Jack carried a pack over his shoulder, his rifle strapped tight. Ina walked beside him, barefoot but not shivering. Her faint glow helped him see the path, but it also made them visible. He looked back at her. "Can you dim that light again?" She nodded weakly. Her glow faded to almost nothing, leaving only moonlight to guide them. The forest grew darker, quieter. Only the crunch of snow beneath their boots broke the silence. Jack led them toward the river trail, deeper into the pines where even the drone's scanners couldn't reach. He knew these woods like the lines on his hands. He'd cut trees here, hunted here, survived storms here. But tonight it felt different. The forest seemed alive, watching. After a long while, he stopped near a frozen stream. "We'll rest here for a bit." Ina sat on a fallen log, breathing hard. Her silver eyes looked dimmer. "They not stop," she said softly. "They come again." Jack knelt, breaking the ice from the stream and filling a metal cup. "Then we keep moving. But you need strength first." She touched her chest, frowning. "Heart. Weak. Missing part." Jack remembered what she'd said before, about her heart being taken. He didn't understand it fully, but now he saw the truth. Her power was fading. She wasn't built like a human. She needed something else to stay alive. He handed her the water. "We'll find it. Whatever it is, we'll get it back." Ina smiled faintly, tired but trusting. "You help." No reason why. Jack poked the fire he'd built between two rocks. "You remind me of someone I couldn't save," he said quietly. She tilted her head. "Someone you love?" Jack didn't answer. The flames flickered in his eyes. Somewhere in the distance, an engine roared, faint but real. He stood fast. "They're close." He kicked snow over the fire, grabbed his rifle, and pulled Ina up. "Move!" They ran through the trees, ducking under branches heavy with snow. The noise behind them grew louder. Hovercraft skimming over the forest, searchlights slicing through the dark. Jack pushed Ina ahead. "Stay low." One of the lights passed overhead, blinding white. Jack threw himself into the snow, covering Ina with his body. The beam swept past, then moved on. The machine hummed away into the distance. They waited until the sound faded. Ina whispered, "They track by heat, not sight," Jack cursed under his breath. "Then we freeze a little longer." He led her down a narrow path that ended at an old logging bridge, a frozen span of wood and steel over a deep ravine. "We cross, then circle south," he said. But before they could step onto the bridge, a red light flashed from the other side. A drone hovered there, scanning. Jack raised his rifle, took a breath, and fired. The shot echoed through the valley. The drone sparked and fell, crashing into the ice below. "Go!" he shouted. They ran across the bridge. Halfway through, Ina stumbled. Jack caught her. Her glow flickered wildly now, pulsing like a weak heart. "Keep going," he urged. "I can't," she gasped. Energy gone. Jack pulled her into his arms and carried her the rest of the way, his boots slipping on the icy planks. Another drone appeared behind them, its light sweeping across the bridge. Bullets of blue plasma hit the railing, melting it in bursts of steam. Jack dove behind a rock, shielding Ina. "Damn it." She raised a shaking hand. Her eyes glowed bright again. "I can stop them." "One more time." Jack grabbed her arm. "No, it's killing you," she smiled weakly. "I already dying." Before he could stop her, she stood up and spread her arms. A pulse of silver light burst from her body, expanding like a wave. The air trembled. The drone froze midair, sparks flying, then exploded silently, scattering light across the snow. Ina fell backward, unconscious. Jack caught her before she hit the ground. Her body was cold, her glow fading again. He looked down at her and whispered, "You're not dying on me." "Not yet." He wrapped her in his coat, picked her up, and began walking again through the endless snow. Behind him, the wrecked drone still smoked, and far in the distance, more red lights rose over the horizon. Jack didn't care. He would keep moving. He didn't understand why, but he knew he couldn't abandon her. The lonely lumberjack had found something worth fighting for, and somewhere ahead, buried under ice and machines, the missing piece of Ina's heart was waiting. The storm had not stopped for 2 days. The wind screamed like a living thing, shaking the frozen forest. Jack trudged through knee-deep snow, carrying Ina in his arms. She was light, too light, and the faint glow under her skin had dimmed to almost nothing. He followed an old mining road, half buried under ice, toward the mountains. The trader had once told him stories about the old ice factory, a hidden place where machines still worked under the ground. Jack had thought it was just talk, but Ina's weak voice guided him that way. "Heart, there," she whispered, her silver eyes barely open. "They keep my heart." Jack tightened his grip. "Then that's where we're going." They reached the foot of a cliff as night fell. The wind had carved strange shapes into the ice, arches, tunnels, frozen spires. Jack searched until he found a dark opening near the rock face, half hidden by snow. Inside, the air was warmer, humming with a faint electric sound. He lit a lantern and stepped in. The tunnel walls were smooth metal under the frost. Strange symbols glowed faintly along the sides, letters he couldn't read. Ina stirred in his arms, whispering, "Old lab, my beginning." They moved deeper. The tunnel sloped down, leading to a massive steel door frozen half open. Jack pushed through, grunting. Beyond it stretched a vast underground chamber filled with old machines, giant cylinders, cracked screens, and pipes that vanished into the darkness. Some still blinked weakly with blue light. "Looks like this place still breathes," Jack muttered. Ina pointed weakly toward the far end of the hall. "My heart, inside core." He followed her gaze and saw it, a glowing sphere locked inside a transparent pod. It pulsed slowly, sending faint waves of light through the ice. "That thing?" he asked. She nodded. "It is me." Before Jack could move, a metallic clang echoed through the chamber. The sound of boots. He turned fast. From another tunnel, shapes emerged. Armored hunters, 4 this time, their visors glowing red. "Target located," one said. "E7 core detected. Proceed with capture," Jack cursed. "They followed us." He set Ina down gently behind a metal crate. "Stay hidden." She grabbed his sleeve weakly. "Jack, no fight." "They kill," he smiled faintly. "They'll have to earn it." Jack moved fast through the shadows, checking his rifle. He took a breath, aimed at the nearest hunter, and fired. The bullet hit the chest plate, knocking the man back. Sparks flew. Another turned, firing blue plasma bolts that melted ice around him. Jack rolled behind a pipe, the air hot from the blast. "Come on, you metal freaks," he growled. One of the hunters flanked him, moving silent and quick. Jack swung his axe, striking the side of the helmet. The man dropped, armor cracking open, but there were too many. One fired a shock round. It hit Jack's shoulder, sending pain through his arm. He stumbled, fell to one knee. The hunter raised his weapon for a final shot. Then a flash of light burst from behind. Ina stood, glowing bright again, eyes like twin suns. "No more," she whispered. Her hands lifted and the machines around them came alive. Old cables sparked. The ground trembled. The pod holding her heart began to hum. Jack shielded his eyes. "Ina, what are you doing?" "Taking back what they stole." The glass pod cracked open, shards falling like ice rain. The glowing sphere floated toward her, drawn as if by invisible strings. When it touched her chest, a wave of silver light rippled through the factory. Every screen flickered to life. A calm voice spoke from the air. "Unit E7 activation complete. Terraforming systems restored." The hunters screamed as their armor froze mid-motion, locking them in place. The light burned through their weapons, turning them to ash. Ina floated slightly above the ground, her glow fierce and pure. Her voice was stronger now, steady. "They made me to build worlds, not destroy them." Jack stared in awe. "Ina." She landed softly, her hair drifting like silver mist. The room fell silent except for the hum of machines waking after years of sleep. Jack walked toward her, breathing hard. "You got it back?" She nodded. "Yes, but now they know. They will send more." "Then we leave before they do," he said. But before they could move, the voice from the intercom spoke again, cold, mechanical. "Containment breach confirmed. Self-destruct in 5 minutes." Red lights flashed across the room. The floor began to shake. Jack grabbed Ina's hand. "Time to go." They ran through the tunnels as alarms blared. Behind them, the factory roared like a beast waking from a nightmare. Pipes burst and the walls cracked open, spilling fire and steam. They reached the exit just as a wave of heat exploded through the tunnel. Jack threw himself and Ina into the snow outside. The blast followed, sending flames into the night sky. When the sound faded, the mountain was silent again. Only smoke rose from the cracks in the ice. Jack looked at Ina. Her glow was softer now, peaceful. "You okay?" She nodded.
"Heart?"
"Whole again." Then her eyes turned sad. "But they will never stop." Jack wiped the snow from his face, staring at the dark horizon. "Then neither will we." He pulled her to her feet. Behind them, the mountain burned under the stars. Ahead lay miles of frozen wilderness and the long road to freedom. Dawn broke over the frozen mountains, painting the sky pale orange. Smoke still curled from the ruins of the old ice factory below. Jack and Ina had found shelter in a cave above the valley, its walls glittering with frost. For the first time in days, there was silence. No engines, no drones, no red lights moving through the snow. Jack sat near a small fire, his arm wrapped in cloth where the shock round had burned him. Ina sat across from him, her silver eyes watching the flames dance. Her glow was steady again, but softer now, calmer. He finally broke the silence. "That thing we destroyed, what was it?" That place looked like it hadn't been touched in years. Ina's eyes lowered. "It was one of the first creation centers," she said quietly. "Where they built us," Jack frowned. "Built you?" "You mean people? Humans?" She nodded slowly. "Yes, long ago. Before the colony wars." Jack poked the fire with a stick, thinking. "And they made you for what, fighting?" Ina shook her head. "No. We were made to make new worlds. Terraformers. Living machines that could breathe life into dead planets." Her voice softened, like she was remembering something far away. "They called us the Starborn. We could purify air, grow forests, make oceans from stone. We worked together, and the humans promised peace." Jack looked up. "But that didn't last, did it?" A shadow crossed her face. "No. When they built enough colonies, they said we were dangerous. Too powerful, too free. They shut us down one by one." Her hands trembled. "They took our hearts, our cores, and used them to power their machines. We became tools." Jack's jaw tightened. "And you escaped?" She nodded. "Yes, I was made to lead the final terraforming mission on the planet Lyra 7. But when I learned what they did to my kind, I ran. They called me defective. I called myself alive." Jack leaned back against the stone wall. "So that's why they're hunting you. They want to take your heart again." Ina met his eyes. "Not just mine. The others too. Many hearts are still trapped in places like that factory. And without them, the worlds they built will die." Jack's mind spun. "So if you're gone, whole planets could freeze." "Yes." Her voice was soft. "My kind made the systems that keep them alive." The fire crackled between them. Jack rubbed his face, staring into the flames. He wasn't a soldier anymore. just a man who chopped trees to forget the past. But now he'd stumbled into something that stretched across stars. Ina's glow brightened faintly. "You regret helping me?" He looked at her and shook his head. "No, I just regret not knowing what I was walking into." She smiled a little, almost human. "You are strange, Jack. Most humans fear me. You stay," he smirked. "Maybe I'm too stubborn to run." For a while they sat in silence, listening to the wind outside. Then Ina suddenly looked up, her expression tense. "They move again," she whispered. Jack frowned. "How do you know?" "I can feel their signal," she said. "They wake the satellites. They will find us soon." Jack stood and grabbed his pack. "Then we don't wait for them." Ina stood too, her silver eyes glowing brighter. "There is a place north of the glaciers. Old vault. My kind hid data there, truth about creation." Jack nodded. "Then that's our next stop." They stepped out of the cave into the sharp morning light. The air was clean and the snow sparkled like glass. Jack could see the smoke of the burning factory behind them, now just a black scar against the white mountains. They moved through the forest again, their footprints trailing long behind them. The cold bit at Jack's face, but he ignored it. Beside him, Ina walked quietly, her light shimmering softly beneath her skin. After hours of travel, they stopped by a cliff overlooking a wide, frozen valley. The wind howled below, and far in the distance the glint of metal towers broke through the snow. Ina pointed. "The vault, there." Jack raised his rifle and squinted. "Looks guarded. Always," she said. "They protect the lie." Jack turned to her. "Tell me something. If humans made you and you can change worlds, why not fight back?" She looked at him sadly. "Because we were made to give life, not take it. Fighting would mean becoming what they feared." He nodded slowly, understanding the weight in her voice. "Then maybe it's time someone else did the fighting for you." Her eyes met his, and for the first time she smiled, a real smile. "Then we fight together." Jack loaded his rifle, feeling the old strength return to his hands. "Together," he said. Far above, the clouds began to shift. Faint red lights blinked in the sky, ships descending again. Ina saw them and whispered, "They come faster now." Jack grinned grimly. "Then let's give them a welcome they won't forget." They turned north, heading toward the valley where the truth waited buried under ice and lies. The hunters were coming, but so was something else, something even they couldn't control. Because Ina, the girl who remembered the stars, had her heart again, and her awakening had just begun. The wind screamed across the glacier, sharp and cold like shattered glass. The world was nothing but ice and silence, until the thunder of engines rolled across the valley. Jack and Ina stood on a ridge overlooking the metal towers of the ancient vault. Below them, the ground shimmered with blue light from half-buried machines that had slept for centuries. The hunters' ships were already landing near the base, dark and sleek, their light scanning the snow. Jack adjusted his rifle and whispered, "You said the truth is down there?" Ina nodded, her silver eyes glowing in the stormlight. "Yes, the vault holds records of all creation units, my kind, their names, their deaths. The humans erased history. I will show it to the stars again." Jack looked at her. "And they'll kill us before that happens." Ina's glow brightened. "Then we make it happen before they arrive." They descended the slope, snow crunching under their boots. Jack's muscles ached, but his mind was sharp. He had no plan except one: keep Ina alive. She was no longer just a stranger or a strange machine. She was the reason he was still moving, still fighting. As they neared the vault entrance, Ina placed her hand on a rusted metal plate. The ice melted instantly beneath her touch, and the door opened with a deep metallic sigh. Inside, the chamber was massive and silent, filled with glass pillars glowing faintly blue. Strange shapes floated inside, small crystal hearts like the one Ina had once lost. Hundreds of them, Jack stared. "These are my people," she whispered. "Sleeping." Before he could answer, alarms began to flash red. A voice echoed through the vault. Unauthorized access detected. Purge protocol engaged. From the ceiling, mechanical arms unfolded, aiming weapons down. Ina looked up, calm. They never wanted the truth to wake. Jack raised his rifle. Too late for that. The first machine fired. He rolled behind a console, firing back. Sparks and metal filled the air. Ina moved gracefully, her light expanding, bending energy bolts away from her. But then the ground shook. Outside, the hunters' ships opened fire, their cannons tearing through the vault walls. Jack shouted over the noise. "They're blowing the whole place apart." Ina ran to a terminal, her fingers glowing as she touched it. I can send the data to orbit, to every free system. The truth will live. Jack covered her, firing at the advancing hunters. Do it fast. She closed her eyes, her voice calm even as the walls crumbled. Accessing archives. Connecting to relay. The lights above changed from red to white. The crystals in the glass pillars began to hum, glowing brighter one by one. Jack turned and froze. The hearts were waking. Ina, he said softly, you're bringing them back. Her voice trembled with both strength and sadness. Not all. Only their voices. Their memories. Enough to remind the universe we lived. A hunter burst through the wall, raising his weapon. Jack fired first, hitting the chest plate. The man fell, but more followed. Blue light cut across the room and a bolt grazed Jack's leg. He stumbled, cursing. Ina ran to him, holding out her hand. Jack, go! Not without you. She smiled faintly, her eyes shimmering. You will. Because I must stay. What? No, Jack shouted over the roar. We'll find another way. There is no time, she said softly. The vault must stay open long enough for the signal to finish. The roof began to collapse, fire and snow pouring in. Ina's glow turned brighter, almost blinding. She stepped toward the center of the room, raising both hands. Energy pulsed around her, a storm of silver light. Jack limped forward, shouting, Ina! She turned once, smiling through the chaos. You gave me something they never did. A choice. The last thing Jack saw before the explosion was her light spreading across the vault, flowing into every crystal heart. The ground shook as a pillar of silver fire shot into the sky, piercing the clouds. Then everything went white. When Jack opened his eyes, he was lying in the snow outside the ruins. The sky was bright with dawn and the wind was quiet. The vault was gone, just a crater of melted ice. He sat up slowly. The hunters were gone too. Only silence remained. Then he saw it. A single glowing leaf drifting through the air, shining like starlight. It landed softly on his hand. He stared at it, smiling weakly. You did it, Ina. He looked up. High above, the morning sky shimmered faintly with lines of silver light, spreading like veins through the clouds. A signal, racing beyond the horizon across the stars. The truth had been set free. Jack stood, leaning on his rifle, and whispered, You found your home. The wind carried his words into the cold, endless sky. Somewhere far beyond what he could see, Ina's light still burned, guiding lost worlds back to life. And deep in the snow-covered forest, the lonely lumberjack who once lived in silence began to walk again, following the faint glow that would never fade.